I've been a trucker for varying companies for 10 years. 3 years ago, I was working for a warehouse company in Kansas doing shipments. I usually drove the semi, which is what I was behind the wheel of on February 2nd. It was a cold Monday, so the week was just starting and a lot of loads needed to be shipped, so I was trying to bang it all out quickly. I started driving at 3 p.m. and intended on getting to the destination that same night. I didn't want to have to pull off on the side of the road somewhere to sleep. I did around 5 above the speed limit after 12 o'clock, which is fast for a semi. I was starting to feel very tired, but the destination was less than an hour away, and I figured I could do it. My eyes were getting dry, and it was starting to become a chore just to keep them wide open. I splashed some water on my hand and then rubbed it on my face. It helped a little bit. And waking me up, my truck was the only vehicle on this road at this hour, so besides my headlights, the road was completely dark. I remember reaching to take a sip of my water and almost spitting it out when I saw a figure approaching fast up in the distance. I hit the brakes hard, and as the truck slowed down close to a halt, I could better distinguish the features of this person almost standing in the middle of the road. He seemed to be wearing all black with some kind of black scarf wrapped around his neck, and he had an unnaturally long neck. I know it's a weird thing to pick up on, but it was almost freaky looking. His face itself, however, was a complete blur. They could make out any features as my truck slowed down and got closer to this mysterious man. I was about to roll down the window to ask if he needed a ride, but he just turned to his left and darted into the woods. I didn't take an extra second to stop and think about it. I just pressed on the gas pedal again and moved on regardless of how freaky it was. I was in a rush. In fact, it wasn't even until about 20 seconds after that, my heart really started racing from the taking, and how strange it really was. Maybe 5 minutes later, I was able to get over it, but just like that, something else happened. As I was back to my cruising speed, I saw something run across the street in front of me. At first, it looked like a big animal, but as I got closer and it crossed into the woods, I realized it looks like another person. I didn't even tap on the brakes this time. I just kept going, and I kept rooming down the road, maybe even stepping on the gas a little more, just because I was starting to get freaked out and wanted to get there faster. Another few minutes went by with nothing happening. However, I was getting increasingly tired, and at times I was even swerving into the other lane a little bit. 40 minutes or so left in the drive, and I didn't know if I could make it anymore. I started looking around for good places to pull over and park for the night. There was eventually a little opening on the side of the road made of gravel. I guess it was meant to be just a little parking rest stop kind of thing. I pulled the semi into it, parked it, and leaned back and rested my eyes. I fell asleep for not even an hour, just to wake up out of nowhere to the darkness. I still don't know what woke me up, but as I looked outside through the windshield, something in my gut was telling me to turn on the headlights. And so I flicked the knob, and lights lit up the surrounding area in front of my truck. There was something in front of the truck though. A man with the black scarf I'd seen earlier, standing on the side of the road. Now I could see his face much clearer. He had a very wide smile and his eyes were open as wide as possible, and he looked right at me through the windshield. I turned the truck on and pulled it out of that little clearing as best as possible. I didn't know what to think. How could he have walked 10 miles from where I had seen him last? I didn't stop again that night until I made it to my destination. From there, I fell asleep in the parking lot and woke up early the next morning. Think of is that my mind was playing tricks on me because I had been seeing strange things all night. I've never heard of a hallucination being so vivid and terrifying though, and that's the part that still really confuses and scares me. I'm a 16-year-old male, and I go to Ephraim, Utah every summer to do drum corps, and it usually lasts all summer if you're not familiar with drum corps. In short, it's basically professional marching band. We stayed on a college campus and had free days every Sunday to get to know the people in the corps and just relax for a day before we had to go rehearse the next week. This took place last summer. This particular Sunday night, my section wanted to go stargazing since there's really nothing else to do in the middle of nowhere in Utah. People recommended we go to the softball field that was a little walk away from where we were staying. We all agreed to go there that night and planned on being there around 9:30 p.m. However, me and someone else from my room volunteered to go get snacks. Since we were planning on being there for a few hours, we started walking to the nearest gas station to get some chips and soda for the rest of the group. About halfway there, we noticed a strange white truck with its lights on parked right next to the sidewalk. It was too dark to see the driver, but we bit unusual at this hour. We got the chips and sodas and began to head to the softball field. It was quite a walk from the gas station, so we were prepared to be walking for at least 15 minutes. When we were not even halfway there, we saw the same trick again. Only this time it was parked on the opposite side of the street with its lights still on. It was about then we started to get a little suspicious. It was following us. We started to pick up the pace. We walked for a while and turned around to look to see if he was still following us, but he was nowhere to be seen. Then we started laughing at ourselves for being so worried, when it was probably nothing. We were about halfway there. When we were about to pass a bell tower right next to a parking lot, it was then we saw the headlights again, but this time he was driving pretty fast towards the sidewalk. Me and my friend didn't really know what to do, so we kind of just stared at it until it actually drove onto the sidewalk and nearly hit the bell tower. At this point we started sprinting, but the truck was not far behind. We took a shortcut to another side of the sidewalk, one we were sure the truck couldn't get to. We ran the rest of the way back to the softball field without even looking back. When we got there, we told the other people in our section, and they told the staff the next morning, but nothing was really done about it, since the only proof of the truck on the sidewalk were tired marks. I still don't know what he wanted from us, or if I was just overreacting, but either way it kinda spooked me. I didn't see that white truck ever again, and I hope I never have to. Not me, but my father told me last week about a couple years ago when he was driving a road train in Queensland, Australia. It was him and 3 other road trains, I think, and he was second in line. Some guy tried to overtake all of them. Before the overtaking lane ended, this lane isn't very long, about 1 kilometer, and they are few and far between along this road now. This guy had run out of room by the time he had gotten to the truck at the front, and so he went off the road and rolled his car. The trucks all stopped, and my father got out and ran towards the car, which was now on fire. The first truck driver was much closer to the car than my father was due to these trucks being a good 100 meters long. When Dad got there, the truck driver just had his hands in the air as if to say this, "Nope, I can't handle this." What he had seen was the man still conscious, flailing about in the car, burning alive. Dad didn't want to see something so horrid, so he didn't even look. But he was still haunted by the fact a man was alive 1 minute ago driving past him, but was now in the burning car. He saw a head trip driver is still basically a basket case today, from what I've heard, still can't get over it and feels terrible. But it's definitely not his fault driving back from the road trip. Someone tried overtaking my father again on that same stretch of road. Not 2 kilometers away from the night before, there were police up ahead, and the guy was up to about 200 kilometers just to get ahead of Dad before the lane ended. So he slams on the brakes just before he can get seen by the coppers, and Dad says he barely braked in time to not send him flying ahead due to road trains having a much harder time braking than a car. Does they get pulled over? And my dad abused the out of this guy because he was still upset about the nag before, and he sure as hell didn't want to see that again. He barely braked in time to not send him flying ahead due to road trains having a much harder time braking than a car. Does they get pulled over? And my dad abused the out of this guy because he was still upset about the nag before, and he sure as hell didn't want to see that again. I hope that people can understand that trucks, especially road trains, don't have the same capabilities as cars. You should know how to act around them and know how they work.